My name's Amy McCosker. I work for CQ University and am based here in Rockhampton. We developed, along with industry partners, the Excited for Careers in Agriculture program. It's a K-10 program for students in regional and rural communities. The program itself works with various industries all over Australia and embeds career advice in the classroom using various methods and lots of different exciting ideas. So the project itself received funding from the Australian government's National Careers Institute. And we work with a variety of partners. The one that we're speaking, the industry today is, of course, prawns and aquaculture. And our industry partner in that instance is the Australian Prawn Farmers Association. So we've had some really great partnership with that organisation and also with Tassal. So we're really appreciative of all the support and help that we've got from Tassal to get out into schools and communities around Australia. And all of our guests today on this careers panel actually come from Tassal. So let's start. We've got Steve Harrison just there. We've got Payne and we've got Ben Philp. Now, before we get into asking some questions about your careers, guys, I'll just say that, let me just change slides. So if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat box or the Q&A box, because in this webinar format, participants won't be able to speak directly to us. So just if you put them there, I'll be able to ask in the chat or Q&A, I'll be able to put those questions to our panelists. And if you'd like some more information on Excited or any of the other projects that we in the Agri-Tech education team run, you can head to our website there, agritech-education.com. Okay, so let's start. Steve, I was wondering if you could just give everyone a bit of an overview of the prawn industry to start with. Obviously, it's not everywhere in Australia.
No, so we're from the farmed prawn industry, which is different to most of the prawns that you'll see. I think Australia imports about 80,000 tonnes of prawns from overseas, and we grow in Australia around 10 to 12,000 tonnes in total, and most of those are black tiger prawns. Our company Tassal, this season we grew 6,000 tonnes of those prawns. So we're the biggest player in the farmed prawn industry. So prawn farms are based in obviously the warmer areas of Australia. So our three farms, we've got one up at Mission Beach, just south of Cairns. We've got our largest farm here at Proserpine, and we've got a farm in Yamba in the northern rivers of New South Wales. And other companies have got farms in between all those areas. There's also some, I believe, in the Northern Territory as well. So is that sort of what you're looking for, Amy, or would you like more technical detail?
Yeah, well, they all sound like beautiful places to live. So obviously anyone who works in the prawn industry would have no qualms in moving to those areas. But are all the jobs and careers based in those sort of areas, or do you guys use people based in cities and around the place as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, our company in particular, Tassal, is Australia's largest seafood company. So we're also probably better known for our production of Atlantic salmon from Tasmania. So we've got a large amount of employees in Tasmania. Our head office is in Tasmania. So we've got lots of our support people and our marketing people are in Tasmania and New South Wales. We've got our communities people. Some of them are based in Melbourne. So, yeah, right up the eastern seaboard, pretty much.
Our research at CQU tells us that the majority of students believe that the only jobs in agriculture are based in regional and rural parts of Australia. It sounds like, I mean, Proserpine, for example, is obviously a regional area, but it's not, totally too far from the city, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, you're not wrong. Aquaculture is in largely regional areas. I moved up from Tasmania to take this position, and I lived in a tiny little town in the far south of Tasmania, where most of the salmon is grown. A town of 500 people. There's more people work in the industry than live in the town. Let's say moving to Cannonvale was like moving to the Big Smoke for me. Certainly our biggest operation is in Proserpine, and even though it is regional Queensland, like Airlie Beach, Cannonvale, Proserpine are quite well-populated areas. There's lots of facilities for young people to do. Mackay is only an hour and a half drive away to the south. Townsville is a quick drive of 2.5 hours up to the north. It's like driving from one end of Tasmania to the other, but locals here don't seem to mind that.
In Queensland, we think that's just down the road.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a young person, there's a hell of a lot to do in the areas where our farms are based. I mean, Mission Beach is a lovely area to live. Yamba is just a beautiful place. Really enjoyed Yamba. So yeah, but there are some farms closer to the cities. So there's some prawn farms still down around the Logan River area, not as many as they used to. So reasonably close to the Gold Coast, but mainly, yeah, the main operations are in, where the bulk of the employment are in regional areas. But regional areas are some of the best places in Australia to live. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
as I said, moving to Cannonvale was a shock to me because it is like living in the big smoke. I much prefer living in a nice little country place where everyone knows each other and it's beautiful, unspoilt beaches, and yeah, and you can enjoy that wherever you work.
Yeah, that's right. So, Steve, the position that you came to Queensland to take the training and development manager at Tassal, and also you are the chair of the skills committee for the Australian Prawn Farmers Association. So tell us a bit about your roles, please.
So I've got, there's two parts to my role. There's the internal part, which is about 30 to 40% of my role, which is developing our existing workforce, skilling them up in areas such as water quality, biosecurity, looking at our new recruitment program. And then the bulk of my work is actually externally doing programs, working with schools, universities, RTOs, etc., because we've got big expansion plans. In fact, we're not the only industry player in prawns that have got big expansion plans, and so the demand for employees in our industry is going to increase. So our company's invested in this position to create that future workforce by setting up aquaculture training programs in our local schools closest to our farms, and also supporting activities like Excited for Agriculture so that young people can find out about our industry and might consider it as a great career option for their future.
Yeah, it sounds like there's lots and lots of jobs coming online. So moving on to you, Victoria, your job is the Senior Tech for Prawn Health in Proserpine as well. So tell us a little bit about your position and, how you came to be where you are now.
Yeah, so my position itself, we look after, obviously, as the title explains, the health of the prawns. So it's a bit of a kind of quality control role. We spend... While my team spends 80 to 90% of their time out actually casting and looking at the prawns daily. Really nice, obviously, area to be outside in. So that's something that the role that I started in was just a normal tech. And then I got this role after a year of being here. And yeah, so I'm more kind of half and half outside, inside on this role as well. So I'll go out and do all the casting and catching the prawns and doing the health checks like I used to, but I'll also be inside looking at the data and whether that be harvest plans as well. So we have to check them before they go to harvest, and that's just to make sure they're healthy and clean and also aren't soft. So when they molt, they go very soft and kind of floppy, I guess. So you wouldn't want to be sending them to harvest because they'll just get destroyed. So we do pre-checks on that, and then I create harvest plans to, let the harvest team know the order in which we're going to harvest the prawns. And at the moment we are empty. We haven't got any prawns left at all. So I'm spending a lot of my time looking at the data and working out what worked, what didn't. So it's a nice role that's got a bit of a combination of both the data and science and also the outdoorsy work, which I love as well. Before coming here, I'm actually from the UK and I'm on a working holiday visa currently. I've been here for about 3.5 years in Australia. I did a zoology degree back in the UK. Actually, my area of focus was more reptiles, but I did do about a year in a fish farm after uni back in the UK. And that was working with lump sucker fish, and they just work as the cleaner fish for salmon. And they'd send them off to Scotland in those salmon farms. But the dream was always Australia. Obviously, the animals over here are incredible. The wildlife's amazing. The weather is so much better. So we came over here. I came with my partner, and we ended up doing a few different farming jobs. So we actually did quite a bit of sheep farming, which surprisingly we absolutely loved. So although before it was more of a science background, and that's kind of where I was looking for jobs, but as soon as I did the farming, I just kind of fell in love with it. I fell in love with working outdoors and obviously just being out in Australia as well and having that kind of lifestyle. So yeah, this was a nice combination of farming and science that we've kind of fallen into, and I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, it's exciting as well because it's an area that's a little understudied. So prawns themselves, is so much more to learn about them, and you do all the time when you're working here. So yeah, that's pretty much how I ended up in prawn farming.
So how did you bridge that, I suppose, the knowledge between what you'd done, you know, where you've come from, and the work that you're doing now? I mean, to get that promotion 12 months after you started and to be sort of leading a team now, was there on-the-job training, or what was the gap, I suppose? How did you cross that?
So the job itself, obviously being farming, you have to be able to push through a lot of that kind of repetitive work and work really hard outside. And then the more you do that, the more you get to see the side of it that develops, so like the science side of things, and you get to be more involved in the data. So I guess for me, it was just kind of working really, really hard at that, you know, low end level. And just doing those really basic jobs because, you know, prawns were new to me, even though I've got a zoology degree and is transferable. They were completely new to me. I'd not worked closely with them. So I was always learning. So even though I had the degree, I came in and I acted as if I was, you know, the same as anyone that didn't have a degree, and, you know, because I'm learning just as much as they are. So yeah, it was more just, for me, it's a lot of passion. Like I get really excited about the prawns themselves. So kind of showing that passion, and then you get more involved in things that are getting, you know, higher up level management things. You start to learn about a lot more from your superiors just because you're interested and you're asking all the time. And that just, I guess, gets you more involved in the things that you wouldn't as a normal tech. So yeah, like it just learning on the job as you go, develop your own skills, and kind of, I think it's important as well in farming not to ever feel like you're too good for a job, even if you've, you know, got a good educational background, and it doesn't mean you are going to be better than anyone else at those physical roles. So I think it's good just to come in with that open mind and learn as much as you can. And then, yeah, I guess leading, just you end up learning as you go, and, you know, you can make a few mistakes, but yeah, it's a small team that I've got at the moment. So I've only got 4 team members in mind. So it's actually quite a nice transition from tech to management, because I don't have to lead a huge group. But it's also nice because you get that more personal feel with your team. Yeah, I think it's just putting in that hard work at the beginning, and then, you know, stretching out to other areas as well.
Well, it's a very interesting career path. It's a hard one for Ben to follow. Let's see if he can. You're not a zoologist from the UK as well, are you, Ben? That would be pretty.
Unfortunately not, no.
Tell us a bit about, so you're the senior tech of night operations at Tassal. Are you in Prossie as well?
Correct, yes.
Across the pine, for anyone that's not in Queensland, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, how did you get into the position that you're in?
It's an interesting one. I kind of tailored my education. So I studied my degree up at JCU in Tassal, did my major in agriculture. I was always told to do something that involves either eating, sleeping, or reproduction. People always need to do those 3 things. So I thought agriculture was a good industry. Did my years of study up there. While I was doing that, I got some experience at a prawn farm in Ayr, and pretty much just have worked in the industry ever since. Loved it. It's got such a nice balance between outdoor living, also being able to do cool science work, looking at data. Yeah, if you enjoy riding a quad bike and then later analyzing data and why prawns grow bigger or smaller, it's kind of the industry for you. So yeah.
And what sort of roles do you fulfill as the senior tech of night operations?
Currently, so as the night operations, we will look after the stock overnight, which is the most biologically demanding time for oxygen demand. So essentially, we keep the prawns alive till daylight comes. Then the algae can start to photosynthesize again and put oxygen back in the water. It's quite a varied role. Lots of things can happen. You can have power outages, you can have machinery failure. There's many things that can occur overnight. So it's good just to have a good broad-based understanding and skill set as well. It kind of, it helps you develop a lot of transferable skills. So backing trailers, moving machinery, operating forklifts, there's lots of things that tie in that can go into other industries or other industries that tie into aquaculture that helps you develop as not just a person interpersonally, but skill-wise as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a very varied role. And I guess in the middle of the night, there's no one to really call, right? The buck stops with you and what you can sort out.
To an extent, yes. There's help's never too far away, of course, but yeah, usually you're the wiki keeper. Yeah.
Now, I think, Steve, you didn't mention did you go to university in Australia, or what was your qualification, I suppose?
So I originally trained as a teacher. I worked in education in Tasmania for about 30 years, and about 25 years ago, I got a promotion to a position to a school in that little town of Dover where I live. And I was given responsibility to set up a vocational education and training program for years 11 and 12, because we had really poor retention from years 10 to 11, because at that time, Tasmanian schools finished at year 10. And so to do year 11, 12, you had to go to a college in the city, which was either a 2-hour bus ride each way or leaving home. So, of course, we didn't have particularly good retention. So we decided to set up a vocational training program in the industries in the region, which were where those young people would be likely to get jobs, and obviously salmon being one of them. So we set up an aquaculture training program, and after a couple of years, the teacher that I had he'd retired, and had to look around, and no, it was me. So my family had background in aquaculture. My father was the Deputy Director of Sea Fisheries in Tassie, who set up the original salmon industry back in the early 1980s. So I had some awareness. So picked up a Certificate 3 in aquaculture, and then I've delivered aquaculture education and training pretty much ever since. And then I had a bit of a sea change, many years of trying to make systemic change in education, basically banging my head up against the wall. This job came up. I knew Grant Purden, who's our manager of prawn operations, and had a chat and said, "Purds, would I be any good at this job?" And he replied in his normal brusque way. And here I am, living in Whitsundays and continuing training in aquaculture.
Yeah, awesome. So some tertiary education there across the board, some more specific than others, and also some TAFE there as well. Would you say, Steve, that that the aquaculture industry is looking for at the base a grade 12 certificate, or a bit further we're talking TAFE or tertiary? What level, or is it all levels?
It's all levels, Amy. So one of the reasons why we're working so hard to set up these Certificate 2 in aquaculture programs at our local schools is because we'd like our young people coming out of year 12 who are interested in this industry to have that sort of entry level knowledge and understanding of what they're on about, as opposed to previous recruitment, which is basically taking people who have no knowledge, and then we have to skill them up and train them. It takes effort on our part, but also if they already have that knowledge, they're far more valuable to us, because on day one they know basic water quality, and they know basic animal husbandry. But also, as you've seen with Ben and Vic, there's scope for employment for people with graduate degrees as well. So we're looking at setting up some pathway. We're actually working with JCU to set up a scholarship pathway out of year 12 at our same local schools, so that some of the more academically minded students don't feel that they can't do the Certificate 2 in aquaculture because it's a vet course. We're going to have a pathway from that towards university as well. So we're covering all bases and broadening the general understanding and creating a passion for aquaculture in our region.
So it sounds like there's sort of opportunities for everyone across the board. In your team, Vic, in the sort of prawn health space, do you have people with varying qualifications, or is there a level in that prawn health that you're sort of looking for?
Not necessarily. I think it definitely helps to have an understanding or a level of learning for the data side of things. Doesn't necessarily mean a degree, but just to have that at least computer skills. But we have a varied team. We have one guy who actually didn't know how to use a computer when he started. So he is from an older generation, so he's never had to, but we actually got him, you know, basic skills. He learned them on the job, and he's now really like excited to learn new things on the computer. So definitely, like, you can have all sorts of experience and skills and still do well here. It's just you might enjoy it more if you have already got some of those, you know, skills before you come in, because you won't feel as swamped. But no, we've got another team member. She's not got a degree. She actually did dog training before this. Came up and moved to the Whitsundays, and she's absolutely loving it, loving the prawns just like I do. And then we have another girl. She does have a degree, but from Taiwan, back in her country. And yeah, she's doing absolutely amazingly. She is very good with the data as well. But it means that people have different skills as well. So we often work in pairs. They'll have kind of two on each side of the roster. And it's quite nice if one of them has a degree and that skill, and the other one maybe has a bit more of a skills in the more manual side of things, so that they can complement each other. So it's not always a case of we only want people with degrees and things, because sometimes it's better to have that mix. So, you know, there's skills from all across. So yeah, it's definitely very open.
Mm. And Ben, as the senior tech in the night operations team, do you find that your role does also include that sort of upskilling people? So you're not generally looking for a certain qualification necessarily, just an interest in learning so that they're ready to learn what you've got to say?
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes down to the person and how keen they are, whether or not it's a job or a career. But there's definitely no glass ceiling in the sense of training. So you can come in pretty well with a grade 12 certificate. You can start as a pond tech, move up and get upskilled and trained. If I'm honest, coming from uni, a lot of what they teach you is theory, but where the real education comes is with the hands-on skills you acquire while on the job. And it's nice because you can put it into connection with what you're doing. It gives you a better concept and understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that's more of the training and education process of onboarding employees, is trying to connect why we do this, what's the outcome, and linking that together. And there's only one way to do it. It's to get your hands dirty and get in. Yeah. There are obviously physical requirements. You have to be fit and able to work. Not necessarily if you're going to focus more on a data side, but if you're pond side or out in the sun, obviously you've got to be able to physically be able to lift heavy weights and move around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And would you say that that you're looking for a certain type of person, like it when you're?
That it almost seems a bit like to say it's the culture. You look for the person's personality in the culture, because you can always learn the skills. You can't teach initiative. So you're looking for people that are keen, have drive, they're looking like they want to be involved, things like that. Because the learning comes with everything. So yeah, you put 10,000 hours into something, you've got to learn at some point. So,
That's
yeah.
right. What do you think, Steve?
Can I just feed into that bit about you can't teach initiative? I think that's no offence, Ben, but I think that's one of the things that industry's had to say, because and no offence to the school people out there, just remember I was one, is that schools don't often deliver education in a way that allows for the development of initiative. I'll give you my famous Jaden story. So a few years back, we were running our agriculture training program at the Huon Valley Trade Training Centre, and we didn't have enough students for our adult and year 11, 12 course. We only had our year 9 and 10 course that year. and still all the systems still needed to be maintained. We didn't have techies to maintain our system. We had about a $20,000 research system. We grew about 400 to 500 kilos of salmon a year. So I had to roster these year 9 and 10s on to come over for an hour each day to do all the stuff. So one day the student turns up. I'll call him Jaden because that's his name. And I said, where's your mate, Jaden? And he said, oh, I don't know. So I hand him over the key. He goes out into the $1 million aquaculture centre. I trusted him to do the tasks because he'd been trained in doing them. So he was given responsibility, which sometimes in schools we don't do. He comes back 45 minutes later and he says, yeah, I've topped up the feeders, fish are feeding well, had to buffer the pH in the holding tank. It was down to 6.5, so I chucked 700 grams of bicarb in there, blah, 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 blah. I said, excellent, thanks, Jaden. You better nip back over the road and go to your next class. And he went, oh, no, don't tell anyone. I'm actually wagging school today. And he'd caught the bus in from home using his initiative because he felt responsible that he was rostered on and he had to do his job. So it is possible to deliver education in a way that encourages those soft skills that we in industry are looking for. And that's why we're going to be working with our local schools to set up programs and ways of delivering like that, so that giving students actual responsibility for looking after prawns and research systems and things like that, so that it encourages that sort of initiative and that sort of responsibility, so that when they go and look for a job, and hopefully they'll look for a job with us, but they'll have those skills that Ben's talking about as well. And they won't just have to acquire them by other means with community events or footy clubs or whatever like that. So, yeah, but definitely Ben's absolutely right. We are looking for people with initiative, with responsibility, with get up and go attitudes and all those sorts of things. Yeah.
So as the prawn industry sits today, what is there any shortage of particular positions? Like if someone's out there thinking that they might like to aspire to a job, any type of job in the prawn industry, is there?
All of them.
All of them. I suppose that's why you're out recruiting, right, at schools.
Yeah.
What I was sort of thinking was we might be able to look at the jobs now and what you think the jobs might be in the future. Do you think that there's that there might be in lots of industries, we talk about the growing role of technology, for example, and perhaps some of the positions that we have today, we couldn't even imagine the ones that are coming in 10, 15, 20 years down the track. So, Steve, are there particular positions today and in the future that you can foresee?
The positions themselves won't necessarily change. It's what they do and how they operate which will change. So we'll need farm attendants, we'll need technicians, we'll need senior techs. It's what they actually do in those roles. So yes, the uptake of technology is huge. I mean, Vic's sitting in a room now where directly those computer screens behind her, you can't see her screen, and you can see Chris's screens there. Chris feeds all of the prawns on all of our farms from that desk, because all of our feeding is all automated. The other desk is where our senior tech for water quality sits. So people need to be aware of this technology, and even if it's just me as a pond attendant walking into a pond, knowing about not tripping over the hydrophone cord or not damaging the probes and those sorts of things. The awareness of the technology and the digitisation of the jobs is going to change significantly in prawn farming. Some of the things that will change, we're automating things in our processing facility. Interestingly enough, we're automating them not because we want to actually replace people. We're automating because we can't find people. So quite often automation is a way that business and industry use to ultimately save money by not employing physical people. We're in the situation in the Whitsundays due to the incredibly low unemployment that we can't find these people. So we're automating because we can't find people. So yeah, I'm waffling again as I do. So
No, yeah, it sounds like that technology and data are the growth sort of spaces there. And Vic, you mentioned that a bit earlier as well, the importance of data and having a mind to be able to sort of manage it as you go down those particular career paths. And I think obviously your career progression sort of focused on that animal side of things, but it seems like there would be a career pathway as well that focused on just pure data, like working in the office, not really dealing hands-on with animals or prawns, but actually just focusing on crunching those numbers more and more into the future, perhaps.
Definitely. I mean, even just in this one season that I've done as a senior technician, it's developed that I am doing more of the data than I was at the beginning. Like I've become less outside, more inside, just because it's kind of me accepting additional things to do inside and additional work from my boss, because I find it very interesting. I find it quite exciting. So it's one of those things of, I guess you can take it in a way that suits you. So the roles, it's quite open here, like you can develop in your own way and you can use your strengths to, I guess, push into those areas that you want to go into more. The previous senior tech for my role, he didn't have a scientific background. He was actually a butcher beforehand, but he was very good with the outdoorsy machinery work, things like that. So he did a lot more outdoors because that was his strengths. I've brought it a bit more indoors because that's where I'm better. I don't have a lot of tickets or anything like that. So I think there's definitely room for that. Another exciting thing as well with the whole like technology developing, I do find it is a big draw for this company because they're so open to new trials and new technology that can help improve performance and obviously profits. So it means there's opportunities to be involved in projects all the time, which is, I think, amazing because, you know, some places, smaller places might not be able to afford to do that, whereas this place they can. So if you were to find something and do your own research and then present it to your bosses and, you know, can back that with potential profits and results, then yeah, they'll potentially give you a trial and you can lead it. And I think that's something exciting as well.
So you don't necessarily have to, you know, love working outdoors or be particularly passionate about aquaculture and prawns to be able to have skills that are transferable. Like some people who are more passionate about just pure data obviously have a place.
Oh, definitely.
Increasingly so. Yeah. And Ben, do you agree with that? Is that something that you see in your sort of not operations field as well, is just being more and more aware of technology?
Absolutely. And just to go to the point before that, Steve, was automation is coming more into the industry and it's not really removing jobs. What it's doing is it's taking away the monotonous, repetitive tasks and making the roles more enjoyable and interesting. So as the future progresses, it's going to be hard to tell in even 5 to 10 years what positions will basically entail and what you'll be doing every day. But the basics will be there with growing and producing. So, yeah.
I think that, and I know this firsthand from organising our Excited for Careers in prawns and aquaculture projects where we were taking students on farm. By virtue of the fact that prawns are, you know, very delicate animals and that there's quite a lot of biosecurity around the farms, it can be difficult to get on farm, or, you know, not difficult, but, you know, because of the fact that Australian prawns are so sought after because they're so well produced. It's not the sort of farm that you can just come and go from or just knock on the door and come in and have a look. So if students or teachers or parents or any sort of group was interested in, you know, learning a bit more, Steve, what would you say that they should do?
We are open for visits with our local schools. It's the logistics of how many we can take, and you're right, biosecurity has become a real issue for us in terms of preventing the spread of disease. And I guess the farm in most concerned of that one is our farm down in Yamba. So all of the farms there are subject now to biosecurity order, which that makes it difficult to have visitors on site. But as long as we comply with our normal standard biosecurity processes, we can host visits at our Proserpine farm within reason of logistics in terms of numbers. And also at the moment when we're in the off season, so there's not much to see. But we are working with a range of other organisations to promote the industry and the jobs and activities in the industry. So one of those is the Aquaculture Tech Skills Hub and Cannonvale TAFE, and they've got some really interesting cutting-edge virtual reality tools which they'll be able to beam out their operations at their newly built research systems in Cannonvale. And also with the Bowen Gummerwood Growers Association funded a production of a virtual reality video starring Vic and one of her offsiders, and that'll be available soon as well. So that will take you basically through a whole range of our operations, from water quality testing to prawn health testing to looking at harvest, and yeah, so they'll be able to explore those careers through that virtual reality offering. So when that becomes available, I'll certainly provide it to you, Amy, and you can get it out to your networks.
Yeah, that'll be great, because the next thing I was going to sort of ask is, obviously prawn production is sort of localized to particular areas, and there's probably, hopefully this webinar which we're recording today will become available online, and hopefully some students and people in areas that aren't prawn production area might be watching it, might be interested. So for students who are listening who aren't close enough to be able to maybe attend, obviously they can get amongst some of that VR, which is really cool. What sort of things do you guys think they could be doing, off their own bat? There's obviously subjects at school like biology, mathematics that would be helpful. What would you recommend, Victoria?
Definitely biology, especially for my role in the health. Obviously, we need to have an understanding of the biology of a prawn. It definitely helps us, I guess, investigate and work out what's wrong with them. If you've got a good idea of the anatomy, you can understand when things are wrong, and obviously you can see it much quicker, you can notice it. Maths would definitely be good. If any kind of statistical analysis type skills, if you want to go a bit deeper, that's good. If you want to look more at the data side of things, we do use things like Tableau that are really good for kind of doing a lot of that for you. But yeah, definitely maths would help, definitely, but I'd say more the biology from my side of things, definitely. Also, just I think just being very hands-on, enjoying. Obviously, we handle the prawns daily, so to be in my role, you need to be comfortable holding them and not like freak out, because obviously it's very natural. The prawns do flick, they do have spikes on them, so a lot of people can get quite scared of them and freak out when they move. And I guess having some experience in handling maybe some kind of shellfish or seafood or something that's not cuddly and soft, I guess, would definitely benefit. Just having that comfortable feeling around animals, definitely.
And Ben, it sounded like from our discussion earlier about technology, growing fields like, say, coding could also be the type of thing that younger students might consider, looking into to become involved in prawns and aquaculture.
Yeah, absolutely. Data science, coding, but it doesn't have to strictly be along that path. You can also, because the industry is broad, you can have mechanical skills, because that can tie into other areas. Like Sparkies are going to become more and more of a requirement because of the integration of technology. So the roles will become more broad and specialized, and yeah. It won't strictly just be book smartness. You'll also need people that have the mechanical side and thinking as well. So, yeah.
People that are brave enough to work in electronics around water.
Yeah.
People are aware of safety,
yeah. Yeah, of course.
There are 2 Queensland subjects which are specifically have a focus on aquaculture. So Aquatic Practices has a unit on aquaculture. So if students are interested in finding out more about the industry, that's a good one to choose. And as I said, TAFE will have their Certificate 2 in Aquaculture available under the TAFE for Schools program from 2024. They're looking at a range of delivery models here in Queensland, on site for the schools close by to the Cannonvale campus, to remote delivery using their VR technology to schools further away. They're also looking at models of what's called auspiced delivery, where the school has someone who has got a bit of a background in aquaculture who can deliver some of the practical components, and then TAFE will be responsible for the assessments as well. So if there's teachers out there listening who think that, yeah, they might want to get involved in aquaculture, go and tap your head of department on the shoulder, or your principal, and say, I reckon our school should contact Queensland TAFE and get this aquaculture course happening, because it's a great program. It's got entry levels across the board, so it's not your typical hands-on, good with your hands vet course in terms of getting dirty. There's a fair whack of science in it. There's a fair whack of maths in it. There's a fair whack of data in it as well, and there's a shed load of technology in it as well. So it's a really good course that covers all of those bases that, and it needs to, because that's what our industry needs.
Right. Yeah, that's a really nice spot to sort of wrap everything up. Did anyone else have any final comments that they wanted to make before we wrap things up? No? Great. Well, thanks so much for your time, Steve, Vic, and Ben. We really appreciate it. You've painted a picture of a really dynamic, interesting, and most importantly, growing industry that, we're going to need lots and lots of positions. There's going to be lots of exciting careers coming up for young people, and people considering a career change as well. People Steve talked about career changes a bit earlier, people who might be mid-career looking for a sea change. It sounds like the prawn industry there wouldn't be a better one if you're looking for a nice place to move and live, and an exciting job to get. So thank you so much to all of you for participating today.